because as I said, I don't go back and listen to my own videos. I mean, I've heard them, and I hear all the comments, and I get people that blast me on one side or praise me on the other side, and totally different perspectives. But this republic thing that we're involved in is so important to me. We must lay the foundation and the structure that has been given to us by our forefathers in the Constitution, which, yeah, there were some mistakes even there, but they are correctable mistakes. We can give women the right to vote, and we have, and blacks the right to vote and own property, and we have. Here in Florida, we have 2 black people that are serving in Congress, and an Hispanic serving in Congress, and women serving in the Senate and in the Congress. And I'm sure this is the same thing is true all over the country. And this is such a beautiful coming together. And this is what the vision of our forefathers, to have a nation that was actually a republic that could bless the entire world. And this is my vision, and I bet I'll lay odds that it's the vision of most of the people that are on this call tonight, or you wouldn't be part of this movement to reestablish freedom for everybody and sovereignty for everybody. And one of the things that I pointed out, one of the criticisms that I heard, is people that took Tim Turner's courses on the UCC1 and other courses that he took, and they did things and they lost their house anyway, or they lost in court, and maybe some of them ended up in jail or something, and they blame Tim. They point the finger and say, well, it's Tim Turner's fault because he gave me bad information. I have been involved in a lawsuit for in July it'll be 7 years, and it still hasn't gone to trial, and it won't go to trial. It's in the ecclesiastical court now because it already went through the appeal process. But I did my UCC1 and lots of other remedies that the judge paid no attention to, just simply ignored them, and went on, and they sold my house on February the 15th of this year for $100. And I'm still in the house, and I never even had a mortgage on this house from day one. But these are the type of things that the Republic is in process of actually correcting. And it's going to be a blessing that spreads out not just in the United States, but around the world. I mean, we are here to bless the world. We are lights of the world, and we're going to show that light. How? The way Jesus said, by this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. And if you only love those that think like you do, how are you any different than anybody else? Love even your enemies, and then they'll really get it. And we got to come together, folks. And I'm doing what the chaplain did before. I'm starting to get this frog in my throat. Maybe it's time to shut up. But
well, Ron, why don't you take a break? I'm going to leave you unmuted if you want to mute yourself while you get a glass of water. And I'd like to bring on Donna Kozak, who has another perspective and a supporting perspective on what she's seeing. Donna has been behind the scenes working, in fact, alongside the president back in the days of the secure party creditor process. And Donna, if you are there, good evening. And I'd like you to share what you have shared with us in an email and give us your perspective here.
Well, first of all, I'd just love to say hello, and again, hugs and just warm wishes to everybody who's been in this as long as some of us have been since the beginning days of February of 2010. And it's just unbelievable that it shouldn't be, but I mean, those are the human words to say how wonderful it is that we are together. And everything that Ron just said, I would echo that in song. It is absolutely right on. And during the past few days, because of this radio interview, it just so happened I get hordes and hordes of emails and lots of links and stuff. But for some reason, the Lord always leads me to exactly what I should maybe just start to listen to and see if I want to finish. And lo and behold, I listened to that whole interview because I like to always know what the other side is doing. And I got that it was the other side. And then I got information on the website that had the article the following day, and it was signed by a guy named Red, and it mainly was giving the entire interview in script so you could read about it. And I know there's a lot of what I just call this stuff that's gone on the internet ever since I first got a computer in about 1996 or 97 and started in with all of this and learning it and all this so-called conspiracy stuff and that kind of thing. And I believe the closer we get to the reality of the goodness of everything that's going to come about for us, the more attacking it's going to be. If you know the Christian's perspective about Satan's attacks on people who become Christians, you'll understand that. So I'd like to help instill a sense of reliability and assurance into the people who've come into this republic within these past 2 years, because we're all here with a bottom line of having a faith and a trust in what President Tim says, that it's true. We do not have a back and forth. It's mostly been a give in terms of, I see him first of all as our guiding director. That's what I've always seen him as. Like Robert said, I was alongside of him since the beginning of 2009 for 2 years with his Freedom Document program, and I just saw all of the steadfastness, the integrity, the honesty with what he always was told or knew at the moment and so forth in this man. And that is why so many of us are here, because we have seen exactly what Ron said about Tim, is that we have seen a man who is a leader who we can follow. Just think 2,000 years ago, what it must have been like for the people who chose to follow a certain man. I mean, it took a lot of faith, and that's where we're at today also. So now what's happened is our director has asked us many times through the last 2 years to produce things, to get up and do things, and so forth. We've all followed. We are all doing this, like I said, on faith. There's a lot of pressure, let's say, or there's a lot on this man's shoulders. Unbelievable. I remember Tim saying to me one of the first times that I was at one of his seminars, and he said, I've got strong shoulders. And it was like, cool, man, because there are a lot of people out here who've got a lot of problems. And it was just so neat. And there is a lot riding on him, and he knows it. Nothing that he ever says is not what he believes at that moment, because he has to rely on people too. So now this weekend with this interview, like some of the things Ron has said, it turns out that you have a man here who is called Drake, and I ended up getting an email from a lady right after that, and here we are, the nerve thing again and so forth. And I'm just going to read part of my response to her. It'll be the easiest way for me to stay on track here. It'll just give you what I saw in what happened with this interview and so forth. And here it goes. It says, and this is me talking now to the lady who sent me an email. I received a link to Drake's radio interview and gradually listened to the entire thing this past weekend. And yes, he said all these things this article says. That's the one that was named Red. And I said, which is the writer's interpretation of all that Drake said. So now, here's my position on this. You've got a guy named Drake. There's absolutely no physical credibility coming with this guy. No first name, no last name, no contact info, no land address to connect with him, no phone number, no email address, no verifiable past history as to who he is, nor anything that he is saying. No recorded videos or YouTubes for him to expose himself as to his reality so we can see his face and so forth. And when you peel away all that doesn't exist, you end up with a voice on someone's internet radio show. And now you have a writer by the name of Red. repeating Drake's stuff and trying to add credibility to Drake's message. The info regarding the supposed fact that there are lots of states, and they don't mention which ones, or how there were contacts in each of these states, or who the people are, or how they were found, and that they had paperwork and so forth, none of that exists. When we did our paperwork to the 50 de facto state governors, and this was in March of 2010, all of that paperwork still exists today. I have all of that paperwork and everything. We still have that documentation. So we know what went to the UPU, the Hague, the UN, and there are also hundreds who can vouch for the Utah document, plus the hundreds who actually went to Utah as a physical Congress. And what does this Drake actually have as any proof? Now, meanwhile, take a look at the Republic. Tim has a documented background of giving history seminars. Tim has made himself known to everyone. The video, the audios, all of that's posted. I have all of that on the Operation Republic blogspot and so forth. He never denied anyone from recording him when he was speaking in the public, and it's all on the internet. There are websites galore for the Republic. There's a structure of all the states with a provisional government. There's a structure of people in recorded conference calls. Right from the get-go, the state coordinators were known. All our names and emails have always been made available. We have documentation galore, which is public. There is very little behind the scenes. Meanwhile, now you've got this man named Drake coming onto a show which is highly intertwined with other worlds, as I called it, from what I could see by one of his and the radio show hosts' websites. And Drake's supportive website is aligned with a lady who's fully supportive of Teri Hinkle. That's the Diatra Loomer. All who are totally anti-republic for the United States of America. And Teri's beef, because she told me when I called her too one time, that it's a personal thing with Tim. She just got a personal vendetta with him, and she wants him to apologize. And he has been on the phone, he's told me, for hours with her in the past. So meanwhile, all these people are so anti, but the bottom line that I want to know is, what have they ever done to create a structure of provisional government, put it in place so that they can step in when the de facto collapses? And the UN had a plan, they still do, I'm sure, to take over when this would happen. So the one thing we've got in this country is we've got history of what's happened in other countries around the world who've been through collapses of their governments and their money systems, and because of that, we're getting prepared according to the best that we know how to do, especially since, as Tim constantly says, there's no manual 101. We can't go to 101 how to set up the Republic and 101 how to do this, and we're just having to actually do the School of Hard Knocks training. And we are in a training period, like spring training for baseball and whatever. We're training, and we're to be ready. So the bottom line, now that was my part of the email to the lady. And so the bottom line comes down to all of this is, if you listen to this interview, and it was almost like a mirror, a reflection of what Tim's been saying all this time and what we have been doing and the committees and so forth and what we've been setting up. And it was sort of eerie because it was like, well, this guy's saying all this stuff that we know we have done and are doing and President Tim says is happening. And what does he know that Tim knows? Or is he sort of like a spokesman that's coming out for Tim? Are we the Republic who he's referring to and who he's talking about? Or is he just sort of taking all this that all of us have heard and making up a story, putting him in a seat in a chair in such a place where ego-wise, when all this comes about, he's going to try to, garner some of the limelight as if he did it. I don't know. I can't say.